Admiral Vextai stared at the holographic display floating above the command table. Red markers dotted the outer rim territories like drops of blood. Each marker represented a destroyed outpost, a missing patrol, or a colony that had gone silent. The pattern made no sense. "Show me the Kepler-7 attack again," he ordered his aide, Commander Zalek. The hologram shifted, displaying the tactical recording from 3 days ago. Vextai watched as what appeared to be a Catherian assault fleet approached the mining station. The ships moved in perfect Catherian formation. Their communications followed standard Catherian military protocols. Even their attack pattern matched the textbook approach taught in Catherian naval academies. But something was wrong. "Freeze the display at Mark 743, Vextai said. The image stopped just as the lead Catherian ship broke formation to attack the station's shield generator. Vextai had studied Catherian tactics for 30 years. He knew their doctrine better than most Catherians did. They never broke formation like that. They never sacrificed ships for such small tactical gains, and they certainly never showed such precise knowledge of Zephyrian shield technology. "Sir," Zalek said quietly, "there's something else you need to see." The display changed again. This time it showed intercepted communications from the Valdris Nebula incident. Vextai listened as what sounded like perfect Valdris voices coordinated an attack on a supply convoy. The language was correct. The vocal patterns matched Valdris physiology exactly, but the tactics were all wrong. "Valdris forces don't work in groups larger than 12, Vextai muttered. "They never coordinate fleet actions. They're individualists by nature." "That's not all, sir. Watch this." The recording shifted to show the actual attack. 47 ships that looked exactly like Valdris raiders moved in perfect coordination. They executed maneuvers that no Valdris pilot would attempt. Worse, they seemed to know exactly where the convoy's weak points were before the battle even started. Vextai felt his neck ridges rise in alarm. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. "How many incidents like these have we recorded?" 67 confirmed attacks across 12 sectors, sir. All by forces claiming to be known species. All using tactics that don't match their supposed identities. The Admiral's mind raced. The Galactic Council controlled over 300 species across 47 sectors. Military doctrine was carefully studied and recorded. Each species had distinct fighting styles based on their biology, culture, and technology. You couldn't fake that kind of specificity, or could you? "Sir," another voice called from across the command center. "We're receiving an emergency transmission from the Outer Rim Defense Force." "Put it through." The hologram dissolved, replaced by the image of General Korath, a massive Brutarian whose species was known for their straightforward military thinking. The general's usual calm demeanor was gone. His 6 eyes darted nervously as he spoke. "Admiral Vextai, we've lost contact with 3 more systems, but that's not why I'm calling." Korath paused, his breathing heavy. "We captured one of them." Vextai leaned forward. "One of what?" "One of the attackers." It appeared to be a standard Zephyrian naval officer. Perfect uniform, correct identification codes, even the right scent markers. But when our medical team examined the body, Korath's voice trailed off. "What did they find?" "The genetic structure was wrong, sir. The bone density, the muscle fiber arrangement, the neural pathways. Everything looked Zephyrian on the surface, but underneath?" Korath shook his massive head. It was like someone had built a perfect copy using completely different base materials. The command center fell silent. Vextai felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you suggesting these are artificial beings?" "I don't know what I'm suggesting, sir. Our best scientists are studying the remains now. All I know is that something is out there impersonating our people, and doing it well enough to fool our own sensors." After the transmission ended, Vextai stood alone in his command chamber, studying the star charts. 67 attacks, 12 sectors. Multiple species involved, but none of them acting according to their nature. The implications were terrifying. "Commander Zalek," he called. "Yes, sir?" "Contact the Galactic Council. Emergency session. Full security protocols." "What should I tell them, sir?" Vextai looked out at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, an unknown force was studying them, learning their weaknesses and using their own identities against them. "Tell them we have a problem. A big one." 3 hours later, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular hall, their varied forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. But today the usual diplomatic chatter was replaced by worried whispers. Order. Order. The council speaker, an ancient Etherean whose translucent body glowed with authority, called for silence. Admiral Vexthai of the Zephyrian Defense Force has requested this emergency session. Admiral? Vexthai stood, his uniform crisp despite the hours of travel. Honored representatives, we face an unprecedented threat. An unknown force is systematically attacking our outer territories while impersonating our own species. A Valdris representative hissed, "Impossible. No one can perfectly mimic our biological signatures." "That's what we thought," Vexthai replied. He activated his portable display unit, but the evidence suggests otherwise. For the next hour, he presented the tactical recordings, intercepted communications, and medical analysis. With each piece of evidence, the chamber grew quieter. Representatives who had been skeptical began to look genuinely frightened. "The pattern is clear," Vexthai concluded. "These attackers have detailed knowledge of our military doctrines, our technology, and our biology. They're using our own systems against us, hiding in plain sight while they gather intelligence." The Catherian representative stood, her forearms trembling slightly. "But who are they? What do they want?" "We don't know," Vexthai admitted. "But I have a theory. I believe we're dealing with a species we've never encountered before. A species with the ability to perfectly mimic others." The chamber erupted in alarmed voices. The speaker called for order again, but it took several minutes to restore calm. "If what you suggest is true," the speaker said slowly, "then any of us could be one of them. How do we know who to trust?" Vexthai had been dreading this question. "We don't. Until we understand what we're dealing with, we must assume that any unusual military activity could be these imposters." A thought occurred to him then, one that made his blood run cold. The attackers weren't just studying individual species. They were studying the entire Galactic Council. Every military engagement provided them with more data about their enemy's capabilities and weaknesses. "There's something else," he said quietly. "The attacks have been escalating in sophistication. Each engagement shows more advanced tactics than the last. They're learning from every encounter." The chamber fell silent again. In that silence, a terrible realization dawned on every representative present. They weren't just facing an unknown enemy. They were facing an enemy that was getting stronger with every battle. An enemy that knew them better than they knew themselves. And somewhere out in the darkness between the stars, that enemy was still watching, still learning, still preparing for whatever came next. Dr. Sarah Chen felt the familiar burning sensation as her biomask dissolved. The chitinous plates that had covered her skin for the past 6 hours melted away like wax, revealing her human features underneath. Around her, the rest of Infiltration Unit Tango was going through the same transformation. Sergeant Mike Torres shook his head as his borrowed Zephyrian neck ridges retracted. "I hate the forearmed setup," he muttered, flexing his shoulders as his extra limbs disappeared into his torso. "Makes my back ache for hours." "Stop complaining," said Lieutenant Anna Volkov, her Valdris tail dissolving into her spine. "At least you don't have to deal with the sensory overload from compound eyes." Sarah watched her team return to their human forms with professional interest. The biosculpting technology was still new, barely 2 years old, but it had already become their greatest weapon in this war that officially didn't exist. "Debrief in 10 minutes, called Colonel Marcus Rodriguez from across the ship's ready room. His transformation from a dead Catherian warrior back to human had taken longer than most. The deeper the disguise, the more painful the return process. Sarah pulled up the mission files on her tablet. Operation. Deep Cover had been running for 18 months now. In that time, her unit alone had infiltrated 47 alien military installations, participated in 32 engagements while wearing enemy faces, and gathered intelligence that would have taken conventional spies decades to acquire. The irony wasn't lost on her. Earth's first contact with alien life hadn't come through peaceful exploration or scientific discovery. It had come through intercepted communications planning humanity's destruction. The Galactic Council had already voted. Humans were too dangerous to be allowed to develop faster than light travel. The extermination fleet was scheduled to arrive in 18 months. Earth's response had been characteristically human. They didn't try to negotiate. They didn't send ambassadors begging for mercy. Instead, they did what humans had always done when faced with extinction. They adapted, they learned, and they prepared to fight back. Listen up, Rodriguez said as the team gathered around the holographic display table. Command just received our next assignment. We're going after the Corvac station. Sarah pulled up the station schematics on her tablet. Corvac was a major Zephyrian military installation, home to 3 fleet groups and a research facility studying human interception data. Taking it would be a significant blow to enemy intelligence gathering. What's our approach? Asked Torres. We go in as Valdris Raiders, Rodriguez replied. Small team hit-and-run tactics. The station commander expects human infiltrators to use large-scale disguises. He won't be looking for a handful of individual operatives. Sarah nodded. It was a good plan. The aliens still thought in terms of species-specific tactics. They couldn't imagine that humans might combine the stealth abilities of Valdris with the strategic thinking of Zephyrians and the technical skills of Catherians. Dr. Chen, Rodriguez continued, you'll be our primary intelligence gatherer. We need everything they have on human biology, technology, and military capabilities. Understood, sir. How long do we have for preparation? 72 hours. Full biosculpting, language immersion, and cultural conditioning. This isn't a quick raid. We're going to be living as Valdris for at least 3 weeks. The team dispersed to begin their preparations. Sarah made her way to the biolab, where Dr. James Park was already preparing the genetic templates they would need. Valdris physiology again? Park asked as she entered. Afraid so. Full neural mapping this time. We need to think like them, not just look like them. Park nodded grimly. The deeper infiltrations were always risky. Spending too much time in an alien mindset could cause permanent psychological changes. They'd already lost 2 operatives to identity displacement disorder. I've got the latest templates from the Moscow facility, Park said, activating the biosculptor. Their team captured a Valdris infiltrator last month. We've got perfect genetic mapping now. Sarah lay down on the treatment table and felt the familiar tingle as the biosculptor began its work. Her bones lengthened and reshaped themselves. Her skin developed the characteristic scaled pattern of the Valdris. Most unsettling of all, her brain chemistry began to shift, adopting the individualistic, predatory mindset that defined Valdris behavior. As the transformation progressed, Sarah reflected on how they had gotten to this point. The discovery of the extermination plan had come through pure luck. A deep space monitoring station had picked up encoded transmissions discussing the human problem. The translation had taken months, but the message was clear. Humanity was considered a threat that needed to be eliminated before it could spread beyond its home system. The global response had been swift and unprecedented. Every nation on Earth had contributed to Project Mirror, the crash program to develop biosculpting technology and faster-than-light travel. The best minds from every field had worked around the clock to give humanity a fighting chance. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, a marine biologist studying octopus camouflage, had discovered a way to reprogram human cells to mimic any biological structure. Combined with advances in neural interface technology, it became possible for humans to literally become other species, at least temporarily. The military applications were obvious. Why fight aliens on their terms when you could fight them while wearing their faces? Transformation complete, Park announced. How do you feel? Sarah sat up, testing her new form. The world looked different through Valdris' eyes. Colors were more muted, but she could see heat signatures clearly. Her hearing had shifted to pick up ultrasonic frequencies. Most importantly, her thought patterns had changed. She felt the predatory focus that made Valdris such effective infiltrators. Good, she said, surprised by the raspy quality of her new voice. Very good. Over the next 3 days, Sarah and her team underwent intensive training. They learned Valdris movement patterns, social behaviors, and combat techniques. They studied recent intelligence reports on Valdris activity in the sector. By the time they boarded the modified Valdris raider that would take them to Corvac Station, they were indistinguishable from the real thing. The journey to Corvac took 4 days. During that time, Sarah found herself slipping deeper into her Valdris persona. The species' natural paranoia and self-reliance began to feel normal. She had to consciously remind herself that she was human, that she had a mission beyond simple survival. Remember, Rodriguez warned the team as they approached the station, we're not here to cause massive damage. We're here to learn. Every piece of intelligence we gather brings us closer to winning this war. Sarah nodded. checking her equipment one final time. Hidden beneath her Valdris biomask were surveillance devices, data collectors, and communication gear that looked like standard Valdris cybernetic implants. To any scanner, she would appear to be exactly what she seemed, a lone Valdris operative looking for opportunities to exploit. As their ship approached Corvac Station, Sarah felt the familiar thrill of the hunt. But this time, the feeling was shared between her human consciousness and her borrowed Valdris instincts. She was no longer just a human pretending to be an alien. She was something new, something that combined the best traits of both species. The aliens had made a mistake when they decided to eliminate humanity. They had given humans time to prepare, time to study their enemies, and time to become something those enemies couldn't understand or predict. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Thessara stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The siege of Corvac Station had been going on for 6 weeks now, and nothing made sense anymore. What should have been a simple defense against Valdris raiders had turned into a nightmare that defied every principle of military strategy she had learned in 40 years of service. "Report," she ordered her tactical officer. "Ma'am, the raiders have breached sections 7 through 12 on the lower decks. They're moving through the maintenance tunnels using patterns we've never seen before." Thessara shook her head. Valdris didn't work in groups. They certainly didn't coordinate complex multi-level assaults. Yet somehow these raiders had been maintaining a coordinated attack for over a month, showing patience and tactical planning that should have been impossible for their species. "Any word from the research division?" Dr. Kesavor reports that the raiders seem to have detailed knowledge of our station layout, including classified sections that aren't on any public records. That was another impossibility. Corvac Station's blueprints were classified at the highest levels. Even most Zephyrian officers didn't have access to complete schematics. Yet these Valdris moved through the station like they had built it themselves. Deep in the station's ventilation system, Captain Liu Wei led his team through a maze of metal tunnels. His biomask had been active for weeks now, and he felt more Valdris than human most days. The predatory instincts, the solitary nature, the constant paranoia, it all felt natural now. But unlike real Valdris, Liu retained his human tactical training. The combination was devastating. He could think like a predator while planning like a strategist. He knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum psychological impact with minimum resources. "Target acquired," whispered Sergeant Kim in his earpiece. Her voice carried the characteristic Valdris rasp, but Liu could hear the satisfaction underneath. They had found the station's main computer core. "Remember the objective," Liu replied. "We're not here to destroy it. We're here to learn from it." That was the key difference between the human infiltrators and the aliens they impersonated. Real Valdris would have been interested in quick profit or personal glory. The humans were playing a much longer game. Liu attached a data probe to the computer system, a device that looked like standard Valdris hacking equipment, but was actually far more sophisticated. Within minutes, it was copying terabytes of data about Zephyrian military protocols, ship designs, and strategic planning. But more importantly, it was learning how Zephyrians thought. Every tactical manual, every training simulation, every strategic analysis was being absorbed and transmitted back to Earth. Human psychologists and military analysts were building a complete picture of alien military thinking. 3 decks above, Dr. Sarah Chen had integrated herself into the station's medical bay. Her Valdris biomask had been modified to include medical cybernetics, making her appear to be a field medic. In reality, she was conducting the most detailed study of alien biology ever attempted. Every wounded defender who came through the medical bay was secretly scanned and analyzed. Their genetic structure, nervous system responses, pain tolerance, and psychological breaking points were all carefully documented. Sarah had to fight her human instincts to actually help them while maintaining her cover as a coldly efficient Valdris medic. "Doctor," called a wounded Zephyrian security officer. "The raiders. They fight like they know our weaknesses." Sarah applied a biogel to his wounds while her hidden scanners mapped his neural pathways. "How so?" "They know exactly where to hit us to cause maximum pain. They understand our pressure points, our blind spots. It's like they've studied us for years." The officer was more right than he knew. Human infiltrators had been studying Zephyrian physiology for months, building detailed maps of their biology and psychology. Every weakness had been cataloged and shared with combat teams across the galaxy. Perhaps they captured some of our people, Sarah suggested, injecting a mild sedative that would also make the officer more talkative. Tortured them for information. Maybe, but it's not just physical knowledge. They know how we think. They set traps within traps, use our own training against us. Yesterday they made us think they were retreating, then ambushed the relief force using tactics straight out of our own manual. Sarah nodded sympathetically while making mental notes. The human ability to absorb and synthesize information from multiple sources was proving to be their greatest advantage. They weren't just copying alien tactics, they were improving on them. Aboard the UES Leviathan, Admiral Patricia Hayes coordinated 17 different infiltration operations across the sector. Each operation appeared to be conducted by a different alien species, but they were all part of a single, coordinated campaign. Status report from Corvac Station, called her intelligence officer. Infiltration proceeding as planned. We've penetrated their computer systems and medical facilities. Dr. Chen reports that we now have complete biological profiles on Zephyrian military personnel. Hayes nodded. And the Catherian shipyard operation? Team 7 has successfully integrated into their engineering division. They're learning advanced FTL drive technology while appearing to be maintenance workers. The scope of the deception was staggering. Hundreds of human operatives were scattered across dozens of star systems, each one wearing an alien face and living an alien life. They worked in shipyards, served on military vessels, and even held positions in government facilities. The aliens' own interconnected society had become their greatest vulnerability. Their shared communication networks, standardized technologies, and cooperative military structure made it easy for infiltrators to move between systems undetected. "Ma'am," another officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Hayes accepted the secure channel. General Morrison's face appeared on her screen, looking tired but determined. "Patricia, the timeline has been moved up. Intelligence suggests the Galactic Council is planning to accelerate their extermination schedule. We may have only months instead of the full year we expected." Hayes felt her stomach tighten. "How much more time do we need?" "The bioengineers say another 6 months minimum. They're still working on the final phase modifications. We'll buy you the time," Hayes promised. "Our people are already in position throughout their military structure. We can slow them down, feed them false information, maybe even turn their own forces against each other." After the transmission ended, Hayes stared out at the stars. Earth's plan was audacious beyond anything attempted in human history. They weren't just trying to survive the alien threat, they were trying to completely subvert it. The biosculpting technology had done more than allow humans to impersonate other species. It had allowed them to think like other species while retaining human creativity and adaptability. Every human infiltrator was essentially a hybrid intelligence, combining alien knowledge with human innovation. Back on Corvac Station, Liu Wei's team had completed their primary objectives. They had mapped the station's defenses, copied its databases, and studied its personnel. But more importantly, they had demonstrated something that would terrify the aliens if they ever figured it out. Humans could become perfect predators in any environment. They could adapt to any challenge, learn from any enemy, and turn any advantage against its creators. The biomasks were just the beginning. The real weapon was the human mind's ability to absorb, analyze, and improve upon anything it encountered. As his team prepared to withdraw from the station, Liu allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The aliens had made a critical error when they decided humanity was too dangerous to live. They had given humans time to study them, to learn their weaknesses, and to become something even more dangerous than they had feared. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and they didn't even know it yet. Admiral Vexthai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing confusion. The Battle of the Nexus had been raging for 6 hours, and nothing was going according to plan. Multiple alien fleets surrounded his forces, but their coordination was impossible. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the Valdris raiders are moving in perfect synchronization with the Catherian assault ships." "That's impossible," Vexthai muttered. "Valdris don't coordinate with anyone, especially not Catherians." But the evidence was right there on his screens. 47 different ship types from 12 different species were moving like parts of a single organism. Their timing was perfect. their tactics flawless, and their knowledge of Zephyrian weaknesses was complete. Commander Zalek approached with a worried expression. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the sector. Similar coordinated attacks are happening simultaneously on 17 different worlds." Vextai felt his neck ridges rise in alarm. 17 simultaneous attacks using forces from multiple species. The logistics alone should have been impossible. Different species use different communication protocols, different command structures, different tactical doctrines. They couldn't coordinate on this scale even if they wanted to. "Sir," the communications officer shouted, "the Brutarian heavy cruiser is hailing us. Put it through." The massive form of a Brutarian captain appeared on screen. But something was wrong with his posture, his expression. He looked too calm, too focused. Brutarians were known for their emotional intensity in battle. "Admiral Vextai," the Brutarian said in perfect galactic standard, "you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to galactic law." Vextai stared in shock. No Brutarian would offer such terms. Their species believed in honorable death over surrender. They would never suggest that an enemy give up without a fight. "Who are you?" Vextai demanded. The figure on screen smiled, an expression that looked wrong on Brutarian features. "We are what you made us become." The transmission cut off, leaving Vextai staring at a blank screen. His mind raced, trying to process what he had just witnessed. The voice patterns had been wrong. The body language had been wrong. It was as if someone else was wearing a Brutarian's face. Across the battlefield, Colonel Marcus Rodriguez coordinated the attack from his modified Brutarian command ship. His biomask was holding perfectly, making him appear to be a massive six-armed warrior. But inside his human mind, he was conducting the most complex military operation in human history. "Alpha teams, begin Phase 2. He transmitted on a secure human frequency that appeared to be standard Brutarian military chatter to alien sensors. Around the Nexus system, dozens of infiltration teams received their orders. They had been living as various alien species for months, building perfect cover identities and waiting for this moment. On the supposed Valdris raider ship Night Strike, Captain Sarah Chen felt her heart racing as she prepared to drop her disguise. For 18 months she had been living as a Valdris operative, thinking their thoughts and feeling their emotions. But now it was time to remember who she really was. "All teams on my mark." Rodriguez's voice came through her earpiece. 3, 2, 1, mark. Across the battlefield, something unprecedented happened. Biomasks began to dissolve. False transponder signals shut down. Ships that had appeared to be from different species suddenly revealed their true forms. Admiral Vextai watched in horror as the alien fleet surrounding him transformed before his eyes. Valdris raiders became sleek human destroyers. Cytherian assault ships revealed themselves as human cruisers. Even the massive Brutarian command vessel shed its disguise, showing the clean, aggressive lines of human military engineering. "Impossible," he whispered, but the tactical implications hit him even harder than the visual shock. The fleet he was fighting wasn't composed of multiple species working together. It was a single force with perfect unity of command. Every ship, every tactic, every maneuver was coordinated by human minds that had spent months studying their enemies. "Sir," Zalek said quietly, "they're not fighting like the species they were pretending to be anymore." Vextai looked at the tactical display and felt his blood run cold. The human ships had abandoned all pretense of alien military doctrine. Instead of Valdris hit-and-run tactics or Cytherian formation flying, they were using something else entirely: human tactics. The ships moved with a fluid aggression that was unlike anything in the galactic military databases. They combined the stealth of Valdris with the formation discipline of Cytherians and the raw power of Brutarian heavy weapons. But underneath it all was something new, something uniquely human. They were learning from every engagement, adapting their tactics in real time, using strategies that incorporated the best elements from every species they had studied. "Communications," Vextai ordered. "Open a channel to all Galactic Council forces in the system." "Channel open, sir." "This is Admiral Vextai to all Council ships. We are facing a single enemy force that has been impersonating multiple species. Repeat, the enemy is not multiple alien fleets. They are humans using advanced disguise technology." The response was immediate panic. Across the comm channels, he could hear the confusion and fear in his officers' voices as they realized the scope of the deception. "Sir, one captain called out. If they can perfectly impersonate our species, how do we know who to trust? That question hung in the air like a death sentence. How many of their own personnel might be human infiltrators? How many of their bases, their ships, their command structures had been compromised? On the UES Predator, Admiral Patricia Hayes allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the alien formation begin to break apart. The humans had done more than reveal themselves. They had shattered the aliens' confidence in their own forces. "Ma'am," her tactical officer reported, "enemy fleet is attempting to withdraw." "Let them go," Hayes ordered. "We've accomplished our primary objective." The objective hadn't been to destroy the alien fleet. It had been to demonstrate human capabilities and sow confusion in the Galactic Council's ranks. Mission accomplished. Her comm system chimed with an incoming transmission. "Admiral Hayes, this is Colonel Rodriguez. Phase 1 complete. All infiltration teams have successfully revealed themselves and are withdrawing to rally points. Casualties? Minimal. The aliens were so shocked by the reveal that most teams got away clean. Dr. Chen's team reports they successfully downloaded the complete Zephyrian military database during the confusion." Hayes nodded grimly. For 18 months, human operatives had been scattered throughout alien military and civilian institutions, gathering intelligence and positioning themselves for this moment. The reveal wasn't just tactical, it was psychological warfare on a galactic scale. "Rodriguez, begin Phase 2 preparations. It's time to show them what humans can really do." Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Vexthai stared at the retreating human fleet. They moved with a confidence that chilled him to the bone. These weren't desperate defenders fighting for survival. These were predators who had been studying their prey for months, learning every weakness and preparing for total war. "Sir," Zalek said quietly, "what do we tell the Council?" Vexthai considered the question. "How do you explain that an unknown species had infiltrated their entire military structure? How do you admit that every tactical advantage they thought they possessed had been studied, cataloged, and turned against them?" "The truth," he said finally. "We tell them that we've been fighting shadows while the real enemy learned everything about us. We tell them that the humans don't just know our military capabilities, they know how we think." As his fleet limped away from the Nexus system, Vexthai realized the true horror of their situation. The humans hadn't just been preparing for war. They had been preparing to become the perfect enemy for every species in the galaxy, and now they were done hiding. The Galactic Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a primitive world defended by scattered human vessels. Instead, Admiral Vexthai found himself staring at a fortress that shouldn't have existed. "Report," he ordered, his voice tight with tension. "Sir," his sensor officer replied, "I'm reading over 300 defensive installations throughout the system. Their technology appears to be..." He paused, checking his readings again. "Sir, these energy signatures don't match any known galactic technology." Vexthai studied the tactical display. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, but it was surrounded by a maze of space stations, weapons platforms, and defensive grids that looked decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. "How is that possible?" "Sir," Commander Zalek approached with a data tablet. "Intelligence analysis suggests the humans have incorporated technology from every major species in the galaxy. Those defensive platforms are using Catherian shield generators, Valdra stealth systems, and Brutarian heavy weapons, all integrated into a single design." The implications hit Vexthai like a physical blow. For 18 months, human infiltrators had been stealing more than just intelligence. They had been copying technology, learning manufacturing processes, and somehow combining the best innovations from dozens of different civilizations. "Communications," Vexthai called. "Open a channel to the human forces." "Channel open, sir." The main screen activated, showing the bridge of a human vessel. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the center, wearing a crisp uniform that somehow looked more military than anything in the Council fleet. Her presence radiated confidence and controlled aggression. "Admiral Vexthai," she said, her voice carrying easily across the void. "Welcome to our home system." "Admiral Hayes," Vexthai replied formally. "I am here under the authority of the Galactic Council to carry out the extermination order against your species." Hayes smiled, an expression that looked predatory on her alien features. "That order was based on incomplete information. You thought you were dealing with a primitive species that might someday become a threat. You were wrong. What do you mean? You weren't facing a future threat, Admiral. You were facing a current one. From the moment you decided to destroy us, we became exactly what you feared we might become. The screen split, showing tactical displays from across the galaxy. Vexathai watched in growing horror as human forces revealed themselves throughout Council space. Ships that had been disguised as friendly vessels dropped their biomasks. Military installations thought to be under Council control showed their true colors. For 18 months, Hayes continued, our people have been living among you, learning from you and preparing for this moment. Every tactical manual in your databases, every technological innovation in your arsenals, every weakness in your psychology, we've studied it all. Vexthai felt his neck ridges flatten in alarm. You've been inside our military structure this entire time? Inside it, around it, and ahead of it, Hayes confirmed. Did you really think you could plan a genocide without us noticing? Your own communication networks carried the intelligence straight to us. On the UES Leviathan's bridge, Captain Liu Wei stood beside Admiral Hayes, his human features no longer hidden behind alien biomasks. After months of thinking like various alien species, it felt strange to be purely human again. But it also felt right. Admiral, he reported, all infiltration teams have reached their objectives. We have simultaneous control of major installations in 17 sectors. Hayes nodded. Excellent. Initiate Phase 3. Across the galaxy, human operatives who had spent months living as aliens began their final mission. Not destruction, but demonstration. They took control of the very systems they had been secretly maintaining, revealing the depth of human penetration into galactic civilization. You see, Admiral Vexthai, Hayes continued, you made a fundamental error in your planning. You assumed that humans would fight like humans. You prepared for our aggression, our adaptability, our technological creativity, but you never considered what would happen if we learned to fight like you. The tactical display on Vexthai's bridge lit up with new contacts. Human ships were appearing throughout the system, but they weren't moving in standard human formations. Some groups used perfect Cytherian battle tactics. Others employed Valdris stealth approaches. A few even mimicked Brutarian frontal assault doctrines, but underneath, each alien fighting style was something more: dangerous human innovation and adaptability. Every species in the galaxy has strengths, Hayes explained. Cytherians excel at formation flying. Valdris are master infiltrators. Brutarians can break any defensive line. Zephyrians are strategic thinkers. Separately, these are formidable capabilities. She paused, letting the implication sink in. But humans, we don't just have one strength. We absorb the strengths of everyone we encounter. Your own military doctrines taught us how to defeat you. Vexthai watched as human ships executed maneuvers that should have been impossible. A group of vessels approached using Valdris stealth techniques, then suddenly shifted to Cytherian formation tactics when they reached optimal range. Another squadron used Brutarian aggression to break through his outer defenses, then immediately switched to Zephyrian strategic patterns to exploit the gap. This is impossible, he whispered. No single species can master multiple tactical doctrines. No alien species, Hayes corrected. But humans aren't limited by the biological and cultural constraints that define your military thinking. We can be anyone we need to be. To prove her point, Hayes gestured to her bridge crew. Each officer bore the physical modifications of their former infiltration assignments. Dr. Sarah Chen still retained some Valdris sensory enhancements, giving her superhuman awareness of her surroundings. Colonel Rodriguez showed the enhanced muscle structure he had gained from months of living as a Brutarian. We didn't just wear your faces, Hayes said. We became you, and in becoming you, we learned to surpass you. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. Human forces didn't rely on superior numbers or advanced technology. Instead, they used perfect knowledge of their enemy's capabilities and limitations. When Cytherian ships attempted their signature formation maneuvers, human vessels anticipated every move and countered with tactics developed from studying thousands of hours of Cytherian training simulations. When Brutarian heavy cruisers charged forward, humans used the species' own aggression against them, leading them into carefully prepared traps. Most disturbing of all, human forces seemed to know exactly how each alien species would react under pressure. They understood the psychological breaking points of every enemy commander, The cultural taboos that would limit tactical options, and the biological limitations that constrained alien military thinking. "Sir," Zalek said quietly, "they're not just defeating us, they're making it look easy." Bexthai nodded grimly. The humans weren't superior warriors. They were superior learners. They had taken 18 months to study every aspect of galactic military culture, and then integrated that knowledge into their own fighting doctrine. "Admiral Hayes," he transmitted on an open channel, "what are your terms?" The human admiral's expression softened slightly. "Unconditional surrender of all council forces in human space, withdrawal of the extermination order, and recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with full rights under galactic law. And if we refuse, then we continue demonstrating what we learned while wearing your faces. Every secret you thought was safe, every weakness you never acknowledged, every tactical limitation you never overcame. We know about all of it." Vexthai looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had been soldiers of the most powerful military force in the galaxy, just hours ago. Now they looked like frightened children facing a predator they couldn't understand. The truth was finally clear. The Galactic Council hadn't been preparing to eliminate a future threat. They had been preparing to fight an enemy that already existed, an enemy that had been studying them from within their own ranks. "Very well," Bexthai said finally. "I hereby surrender all council forces under my command." "A wise decision," Hayes replied. "But understand, Admiral, this isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning. Humanity is now part of the galactic community, whether the Council likes it or not. And we've learned a great deal about how that community operates." As the Council fleet powered down its weapons, Vexthai realized the full scope of what had happened. The humans hadn't just won a military victory. They had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. They were no longer the primitive species that needed to be eliminated before they became dangerous. They were apex predators who had learned to hunt in every environment the galaxy could offer, and they were here to stay. The war was over before it had truly begun. The beasts had removed their masks, and the galaxy would never be the same.